Alright, so welcome back to my channel, Math and Language, and we're going to tackle chemistry, balancing chemical equations. Okay, so let's start with the first topic, parts of the chemical equation. So may example tayo, 2H2 plus mo ng O2 is equal to 2H2O. So mapapansin mo, itong nasa kaliwa, itong may plus sign, that will be the reactants. Kung saan wala yung arrowhead, ito yung reactants natin. At kung saan yung may arrowhead, that will be the products. For the products natin, that will be 2H2O. Next, we have the chemical symbols. So, ito yung mga letters natin dun sa chemical equation. Mapansin mo, okay, we have the H and O. That stands for hydrogen and oxygen. And next one, we have the subscripts. Subscripts, yun yung number of atoms ng element. Okay? So, for the reactant side, for the hydrogen and oxygen, they have two subscripts. So, that will be 2 hydrogen and 2 oxygen, respectively. And sa product side naman, we have 2 na subscript para sa hydrogen. So, that will be 2 hydrogen atoms. Papansin nyo, sa oxygen, wala siyang subscript. Automatic yun, 1 lang yun. 1 oxygen atom. Alright, next one, we have the coefficients. Coefficients, ito yung number of molecules. So, mapapansin mo dun sa reactant side, we have 2. So, that means 2 molecules ng H2 or hydrogen gas. Pag wala siyang coefficient, understood yun na 1 lang, 1 molecule lang. For example, dun sa O2, walang coefficient, so that means 1 molecule of oxygen gas. And lastly, dun sa product side, 2H2O. So that means 2 molecule ng water. Alright, so let's go to the next topic. Number of atoms for each element or compound. Now, to balance a chemical equation, we need to know the number of atoms din sa bawat element at compound. For example, itong equation na to, 2H2 plus O2 is equal to 2H2O. So, maganda pag gagawa tayo ng table for the reactants and products at yung chemical symbol and number of atoms nila. So, first one, we have the hydrogen. Ang elements lang naman natin dito dun sa equation is hydrogen and oxygen. So, lagay ko na yung hydrogen. Number of atoms niya ay 2. Yun yung subscript nila. Let's start with the subscript. Mapapansin mo, may coefficient tayo. So, again, yung coefficient noon, siya magka-times, multiply niya lahat ng nasa subscript. So, dahil ang subscript mo ay 2, at ang coefficient mo ay 2, so that will be 2 times 2 is equal to 4. Next naman is oxygen. Oxygen natin, ang number of subscripts niya ay 2. At dahil wala siyang coefficient, so understood na yun na 2 times 1 lang siya. So that will be 2 pa rin. Alright, let's go to the product side. Mapapansin mo, sa hydrogen, it has a subscript of 2. Okay? And may coefficient siyang 2. So that will be 2 times 2 is equal to 4. Lastly, ang oxygen natin, wala siyang subscript. So understood na 1 lang siya. Number of atoms niya is 1. At dahil may coefficient ng 2, yan sa buong compound na yan, na H2O, i-multiply mo yung 1 sa 2. So that will be 2. So again, we have the number of atoms for each element. So for the reactant sides, ang hydrogen natin, that will be 4. And oxygen will be 2. And for the product side, hydrogen, that will be number of 4 atoms is 4. At ang oxygen natin, that will be 2 for the number of atoms then. Alright, next example tayo. What if we have tetraphosphorus plus mo ng 3 oxygen gas is equal to diphosphorus trioxide. So, P4 plus 3O2 is equal daw to 2P2O3, subscript 3. So, again, number of atoms natin, paano natin gagawin yan? So, gawa ka ng table, which the reactants and products, and the chemical symbol, and the number of atoms. So, first one, we have the phosphorus. So, dahil ang subscript niya ay 4, so, number of atoms is 4. At dahil wala siyang coefficient, so, 4 pa rin siya. Next, we have the oxygen. Ang subscript ng oxygen mo ay 2. At dahil ang coefficient niya ay 3, 2 times 3 is equal to 6. Next again, yung sa product naman tayo, product side. Phosphorus mo ay may subscript na 2. Dahil may coefficient ka na 2, that will be 2 times 2 is equal to 4. And lastly, yung oxygen mo, you have a subscript of 3 at ang coefficient nun ay 2 kasi yung 2 for the whole molecule ng diphosphorus trioxide. So that will be 3 times 2 ay 6. Alright, so last example tayo. What if we have lead hydroxide plus hydrochloric acid is equal to water plus mo ng lead chloride? So let's start with the constructing of table, reactants, and products. So let's start with the reactants. So since tayo sa lead, dahil walang subscript ang lead, automatic yan na 1 yan. At wala din siyang coefficient. So 1 na yung number of atoms. Skip muna natin itong oxygen and hydrogen na nakapalibot sa parentheses. And we have the chlorine. Chlorine natin, that will be 1 kasi wala siyang subscript. Okay? So, let's go to the product side. So, yung lead natin pati oxygen, that's 1. Wala siyang subscript so automatic 1. For the hydrogen and the chlorine, mapansin nyo may subscript sila na 2. So, lalagay ko 2, yung number of atoms nila. Alright, so, paano naman itong nasa parentheses? Mapapansin mo, nasa loob ng parentheses itong oxygen pati hydrogen. At may subscript na 2. Sabihin nyo, i-distribute natin yung subscript na yan sa bawat element na nasa loob ng parentheses. So, yung oxygen mo, magiging 1 times 2 na, that will be 2. And hydrogen will be 1 times 2 is equal to 2 na rin. So, number of atoms nila ay 2. Alright, so dito na tayo sa balancing chemical equations. So, let's start with the rules muna. Rule number 1, you may only add coefficients when balancing chemical equations. Okay, pwede lang tayo mag-add ng coefficients. Di tayo pwede mag-edit ng subscript. Or di tayo pwede magbago ng number. Basta magdadagdag lang tayo ng coefficients. Rule number 2, coefficients do not go in the middle of a molecule. They always must go in front of the entire molecule. So, palagi nasa harap lang siya. Rule number 3, you may never ever add subscripts or parentheses or anything other than a coefficient to a chemical equation to balance it. So again, para siyang number 1 lang din, you may only add coefficients. Rule number 4, you may never change numbers that are already part of a chemical formula. Kung ano yung given na equation sa'yo, wala kang babaguhin doon. You may only add coefficients. So let's start with the first example. Hydrogen gas plus oxygen gas is equal to water. H2 plus O2 is equal to H2O. So, gawa ko ng table muna for the number of atoms, reactants, and products. So, chemical symbol HO. So, for the reactant sides, we have number of atoms for your hydrogen and oxygen, that will be 2. Okay? Sa product side naman, hydrogen number of atoms is 2, and oxygen is number of atoms niya ay 1. So, mapapansin mo, ang oxygen natin ay isa lang sa product side, and reactant side ay 2. So, gagawin ko para mabalance yan, maglalagay ako ng coefficient na 2 sa tabi ng H2O. Yan na, yung naka-red. Mapapansin mo, ang oxygen atoms na natin ay 2 na rin, kasi 1 times 2 ay 2. Okay? Kaso, mapapansin mo, di ba, pag coefficient ka, i-distribute mo lahat yan dun sa compound. So, yung hydrogen natin, that will be 2 times 2. 4 na yung atoms noon sa product side. So, hindi yun na ulit balance. Anong gagawin ko para mabalanse ito? Ang gagawin mo dyan, dahil 4 ang hydrogen atom sa product side, dapat 4 din yung reactant. So, maglalagay ako ng coefficient na 2 sa reactant side sa H2 para maging 2 times 2 is 4 na. So, mapapansin mo, balance na sila. Now, to check, so, for the reactant side, ang hydrogen number of atoms is 4, oxygen is 2, and the product side naman, that will be hydrogen, that will be number of atoms niya ay 4, and for oxygen, that number of atoms niya ay 2. So, balance. Alright, so next example tayo. What if we have aluminum plus copper chloride is equal to aluminum chloride plus copper? So again, you have to construct a table with the reactants and products in number of atoms nila and chemical symbol. So we have the aluminum for the reactant side, that will be 1. Copper is 1, number of atoms. Chlorine is 2. Sa product side naman, aluminum is 1, copper is 1, chlorine is 3. So, para mabalansin natin yung equation, dapat magtugma yung mga number of atoms. So, mapapansin mo dun sa chlorine, we have number of atoms niya, 2 sa reactants, and sa products is 3. So, para magawa ko yan, mag-multiply ako ng 3 dun sa chlorine. So, maglalagay ako ng coefficient dun sa reactants, dun sa copper chloride. So, that will be Al plus 3 CuCl2. Okay. So, every time na naglalagay ka ng coefficient, lalo na pag compound, madadamay din yung buong compound. So, kung yung chlorine mo na ngayon, that will be 2 times 3 ay 6. Yung copper mo, that will be 1 times 3, which is 3 na. Okay? So, next naman na gagawin mo, kailangan mo balansein yung chlorine sa kabila. So, magka-times 2 ako doon para maging 6 yung chlorine doon sa product side. So, that will be 3 times 2 ay 6. So, remember, dahil naglagay ka ng coefficient na 2 sa product side doon sa aluminum chloride, so, that will be 1 times 2 for the aluminum. 1 times 2 is equal to 2. So, hindi na ulit balance. Mapapansin mo, reactants natin, aluminum is 1. Product side, that is 2. For the copper naman, that will be 3 for the reactants. And for the product side, that is 1. Kaso ang chlorine natin, balance na. Yung dalawang elements na lang. So, pwede magawin, dahil ang aluminum hindi balance, maglagay ka ng coefficient ng 2 dun sa aluminum. So, that will be 2 aluminum plus 3 copper chloride for the reactants. So, that will be 1 times 2 is equal to 2. So, balance na yung aluminum. Kasi dalawa yung aluminum din sa product side. Isa na lang yung hindi natin mabalanse. That will be the copper. So, dahil napapansin mo, tatlo yung copper number of atoms sa reactant side at isa lang yung sa product side. So, maglalagay ako ng coefficient na 3 dun sa product side, sa copper. And 1 times 3 is equal to 3. Alright, so let's move to the next example. Iron chloride plus magnesium oxide is equal to iron oxide plus magnesium chloride. So again, let's start with the construction of the table of the reactants and products, as well as the chemical symbol and number of atoms. So first one, we have the iron. That's 1. Chlorine is 3. Magnesium is 1. Oxygen is 1. Sa product side naman, 2 for iron, 2 for chlorine, 1 for magnesium, and 3 for oxygen. So first step natin na gagawin, try natin i-balance yung number of atoms dun sa iron. So, maglalagay ako ng coefficient na 2 sa may reactant side dun sa iron chloride. So, that will be 2 FeCl3. Okay. So, dahil naglagay ka ng coefficient ng 2 dun, multiply mo ng 2 lahat ng number of atoms dun sa FeCl3. So, yung iron mo na sa reactants, that will be 1 times 2 ay 2. At yung chlorine mo, 3 times 2 is equal to 6. So, mapapansin mo, hindi balance yung chlorine. So, anong gagawin mo next? Kailangan mong i-balance yan. Gagawin ko, mag-multiply ako ng 3 sa product side dun sa MgCl2. So, that will be 2 times 3 ay 6 sa chlorine. So, dahil may coefficient ka ng 3 doon, maapektuhan din yung magnesium. So, that will be 1 times 3 ay 3. So, para mabalanse, yan, mapapansin mo, ang magnesium at ang oxygen hindi balanse. So, maglalagay ako ng 3 sa reactant side sa MgO. So, that will be 3 MgO na. So, 1 times 3 ay 3. At ang oxygen mo, 1 times 3 ay 3. Check mo yung equation natin. So, yung number of atoms sa reactant side, that will be 2, 6, 3, 3 for iron, chlorine, magnesium, and oxygen respectively. At sa product side naman, that will be 2, 6, 3, 3 for iron, chlorine, magnesium, and oxygen respectively again. At balance sila. Makikita mo at stable. Alright, so next example tayo. Example number 4. Copper plus silver nitrate is equal to copper nitrate plus silver. Okay, dito again, gawa ka ulit ng table, reactants and products, chemical symbol, and number of atoms. So for the reactant side, that will be, for the number of atoms, that will be 1, 1, 1, and 3 for copper, silver, nitrogen, and oxygen respectively. At sa product side naman, that will be 1, 1, 2, and 6 for copper, silver, nitrogen, and oxygen respectively again for the product side. Okay, so balanse ang copper and silver at ang nitrogen and oxygen hindi siya balanse. So I'll start balancing dun sa nitrogen. Maglalagay ako ng 2 sa coefficient ng silver nitrate. So mapapansin mo, apektado lahat yan. Yung silver, yung nitrogen, pati oxygen. Magka-times 2 lahat ako yan. 1 times 2 ay 2 for silver, and 1 times 2 is equal to 2 again for nitrogen, and 3 times 2 is equal to 6 for oxygen. Okay, nabalanse niya yung oxygen pati nitrogen. Kasi ang problema, yung silver mo, hindi na siya balanse. So, gagawin mo, para mabalanse yan, maglagay ka na lang ng 2 ng coefficient dun sa product side ng silver. So, 1 times 2 is equal to 2. So, pag makikita mo yung table, 1, 2, 2, 6, and same with the product side, 1, 2, 2, 6 for copper, silver, nitrogen, and oxygen, respectively. So, balance na siya. Alright, so, alam ko mapapansin nyo bakit ba ang number of atoms dun sa nitrogen and oxygen ay 2 and 6, respectively? Remember, nasa parenthesis sila, diba? At may subscript. Yung subscript na yan, i-distribute yan yung nasa loob ng parenthesis. So, yung nitrogen natin, pag nasa loob lang siya, that's one, wala siyang subscript, so 1 number of atom. At dahil may subscript, distribute yun, that will be 1 times 2. 2. Oxygen naman, yung O3 na nasa loob ng parenthesis, at may subscription na 2, so that will be 2 times 3. 6. Kaya 6 yung number of atoms niya dun sa product side. Alright, so fifth example tayo. Zinc sulfide plus mo ng oxygen gas is equal to zinc oxide plus sulfur dioxide. So again, ready the tables for the reactants and products for the chemical equation. Number of atoms for the reactant side, that will be 1, 1, and 2 for zinc, sulfur, and oxygen respectively. For the products naman, that will be 1, 1, 3 for zinc, sulfide, and oxygen respectively, again for the product side. So mapapansin nyo, balanse na yung zinc and sulfur. Yung oxygen na lang hindi balanse. So pag ganyan, ang technique dito, lalo na pag balanse na yung dalawang elements, tapos yung isa na lang natitira, kailangan mong gawin, you can use fraction. Huwag kayong matakot gumamit ng fraction. So, gagawin ko, mapapansin nyo, ang product side, ang oxygen number of atoms na ay 3. So, nang gagawin ko, anong i-multiply ko dun sa 2 para maging 3? So, that will be 3 halves. Kasi 2 times 3 is 6, diba? Divide mo ng 2 ay 3. So, maglalagay ako ng 3 halves ng coefficient doon sa reactant side. So, mapapansin mo, ZnS plus 3 halves O2. So, ayun. Tapos, yung product side. So, balance na. Okay na tayo dyan. Actually, hindi pa. Hindi kasi pwede ang fraction sa chemical equation. So, what you have to do, i-multiply mo na lang lahat yan by 2 para mawala yung denominator. So, mapapansin mo, you have 2 zinc sulfide plus mo ng 3 oxygen gas is equal to 2 zinc oxide plus mo ng 2 sulfur dioxide. So, balance na yan. Tapos, mapapansin mo dun sa table, ayun na, 1 times 2 ay 2, 1 times 2 ay 2, 2 times 3 ay 6. At yung sa product side naman, 2, 2, and 6 for zinc, sulfur, and oxygen respectively. So, again, wag kayong matatakot gumamit ng fraction. Again, kung gagamit kayo ng fraction, kailangan mawala yung denominator pagkatapos yung gumamit. Alright, so last example tayo. What if we have iron sulfide plus mo ng chlorine gas is equal to ferric chloride plus mo ng disulfur dichloride? So again, you have to construct the table for the reactants and products, chemical symbol, and number of atoms. So may 1, 2, 2 for the iron, sulfur, and chlorine respectively for the reactant side, and 1, 2, and 5 for the iron, sulfur, and chlorine again for the product side naman. Mapapansin nyo, okay, yung dalawang elements natin, balance na, yung chlorine na naman ang hindi. So again, gagamit tayo ng fraction dito. Mapansin mo, pag isa na lang, hindi pa na-balance, isa na lang yung element, hindi pa nag-balance, you may use a fraction. So chlorine mo sa product side is 5. At sa reactants mo ay 2. Anong i-multiply mo sa 2 para maging 5? So mag-multiply ako ng 5 halves. Okay? So, that will be 2 times 5 halves is equal to 5. Balance na, di ba? Okay, we're good to go. Again, hindi tayo pwede mag-iwan ng fraction na sa chemical equation. So, what you have to do, multiply mo lahat yan dun sa denominator mo na 2. And voila, meron na tayong 2 for the iron sulfide at 5 for chlorine gas, 2 ferric chloride, and 2 disulfur dichloride. That's already the balance equation. Alright, so that's the end of the video about balancing chemical equations. Next video natin will be about molar mass. So, kukunin natin yung molar mass ng isang element or ng isang compound. If you would like to comment or suggest another math and language video, please comment down below. Kung may assignment kayo, i-comment down below nyo na rin. Again, this is James, your math and language instructor. Please like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye-bye.